If you want to see me do things live, feel free to follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/nerdiness. Out of all the Osu tournaments in existence, you could argue that there are only two tournament series that have reached the highest tier of prestige and respect within the community. The two tournaments that I'm referring to are the Osu World Cup and Corsace Open. Both of these tournament series have become staples in the community since forever, it feels like. These are the only two tournaments so prestigious, they offer second and third place badges. Never has there been a tournament series that comes close to their level of prestige. Until now, that is. The weekend of July 9th to 10th of 2022 will forever go down as a time we will always remember. For me personally, it marks the 41st anniversary of the debut of Jumpman, the person who would later be known as Mario. And for the Osu community, it might have been the craziest weekend in Osu tournament history. Two tournaments ended this weekend, and for your normal Osu tournaments, most players would have to choose which one they would play in and which one they would sit out. However, these are not your normal Osu tournaments. The two tournaments that took place are Charlie's Perfect Math Class and the Round Table. Two tournaments that brought the same level of hype as the largest Osu tournaments to date. In fact, you could argue that the hype these two tournaments brought to the scene reached a level of their own. Charlie's Perfect Math Class is the sequel to Drenched Program, the self-proclaimed greatest Osu tournament of all time. It's hosted by Moist Critical, and considering that it offers the largest prize pool in Osu tournament history and is backed by one of the largest Twitch streamers on the platform, it has a legitimate case for the title of greatest Osu tournament of all time. It features the same 1v1 format and $10,000 prize pool as Drenched Program, which is the perfect thing to bring Vaxei back from the shadows. Okay, never mind. CPMC separates itself from normal Osu tournaments not just with its prize pool, but with its formatting. Instead of map picks alternating between players like in more traditional Osu tournaments, CPMC features counter-picking, where the loser of the previous map picks the next map, and this process would repeat until a winner is decided. The map pools are similar to stage lists in Super Smash Bros. Tournaments as they feature starter maps, maps which players will start on for the first map of the match and can be picked at any time, as well as counter-pick maps, which can only be picked after the first map of the match is played. Not only that, there is no tiebreaker. While this style of tournament is not as common as the traditional map pick alternation format, it's pretty cool to see such a massive tournament stand out with its formatting. Meanwhile, in Los Angeles, California, 16 players have gathered to play in the Round Table, an Osu LAN event unlike any other. Hosted by BTMC, this weekend also featured possibly the biggest and most hype LAN tournament Osu has ever seen. It takes massive inspiration from the Beyond the Summit tournament series by bringing in some of the best players the game has to offer into one location, and has them compete in some side events alongside the main competition. Osu has not seen a LAN tournament anywhere close to this caliber, so the Round Table has taken massive strides towards pushing the absolute limits of the Osu tournament scene. The tournament was so highly sought after that people were willing to take the time to fly over just to compete. Just saying, if mrekk and his brother are willing to fly halfway across the world just to compete in your tournament, you have done something right. We'll just ignore the fact they almost got deported. With two massive Osu tournaments taking place one after another, it set the stage for two of the most historic events in Osu history. However, one problem that these tournaments had was their scheduling. For Utami and mrekk specifically, they were also in the CPMC bracket while they were in LA for the Round Table, meaning they had to play their tournament matchups on different setups away from home. Now, if you haven't played Osu on a different setup before, I think the best way to describe it is that there is something that feels slightly off that you must adjust for. Even if you are using the same peripherals, it just doesn't click the same at first. Sometimes playing on a different monitor, desk, or even environment can throw you off just a tiny bit. Whether the differences are physical or placebo, it's a big obstacle that people going to LAN events have to overcome. It also doesn't help that the other players in CPMC are playing on their own setups in the comfort of their own home, so it's pretty understandable why both Utami and mrekk didn't perform too well for their standards in CPMC while in LA. Still though, it shows how big these tournaments are if they are willing to make some sacrifices to play in both events at the exact same time. Now, just the names of the tournaments and people backing them aren't enough to motivate the competitors to play in these events. There has to be incentive for everyone involved, otherwise these tournaments wouldn't be as popular as they are. As I've already mentioned, the $10,000 prize pool for Charlie's Perfect Math Class is the largest tournament prize pool in Osu tournament history alongside Drenched Program. Pair that with the toughest competition the game has to offer, and that's a recipe for an Osu tournament that will garner tens of thousands of live viewers. The Round Table takes a slightly different approach. You have people being personally flown over from the budget of the tournament, of course, but there is a reason why I compared both the Round Table and CPMC to OWC and Corsace as premier events. As I said before, the Osu World Cup and Corsace Open are the only two tournament series that offer second and third place badges. Competition of those events is so fierce, getting second or third place at those events is an achievement worth celebrating, but it has always only been these two tournament series that did this. But with the debut of the Round Table, there's finally a third tournament series worthy of offering second and third place badges. Everyone playing in both of these events had something to fight for, and they were playing for more than just the prizes. They were playing to cement themselves in the history books. And fittingly, these two tournaments brought us matches for the ages. After the first day of the main bracket stage at CPMC, the final 4 players remaining were Utami and Malashevsky in the winners bracket, along with WhiteCat and LevaRussian in losers. You all probably know Utami, Malashevsky, and WhiteCat are some of the best players in the game right now, and their appearance in the top 4 is nothing surprising. But the Cinderella story of the tournament is LevaRussian. Just qualifying for the main bracket came very difficult for him. He limped into the group stage by qualifying 26th overall. Not only was he seeded to lose in the group stage, he was in the same group as Arnold, Keeg, and Mashtas. The odds were against him, but he ended up winning his group and qualified for the main bracket in winner's side. Following a close 5-4 loss against mrekk in the first round of the winners bracket, LevaRussian went on a loser's run of a lifetime. He beat Lolo 2-3-4, Karcher, and Bartek all in a row to qualify for the final day of the bracket stage. And his match against WhiteCat in the losers semifinals went down to the final map. This match was so crazy, it's easier if I just showed you how it ended.
These patterns have caught so many players through this entire tournament so far. No,
he's
not able.
That's gonna be it.
WhiteCat is able to make it through that first, and that might actually just decide the map entirely.
There's still the ending. WhiteCat misses at the very start of the ending. There's still hope. There's still hope. He missed it more. Right now, LevaRussian looking to secure the point. Is he going to do it? WhiteCat misses at the end.
LevaRussian kept the nerves necessary to clutch it out against one of the best Osu players of all time, where the outcome was as uncertain as it can get. He would end up facing Utami in losers finals after Malashevsky beat him 5-3. And if the tournament script wasn't already crazy with the previous tiebreaker, this match also went down to the last map. It wasn't as close as his match against WhiteCat, but LevaRussian once again clutched out the match and made it to the grand finals where he would face Malashevsky. Malashevsky didn't drop a single match in the group stage and earned his ticket to the winner's side of the final bracket, and he breezed through his competition by beating Intercambing, mrekk, and Utami with relative ease. LevaRussian had all the momentum in the world coming from the losers bracket, but in the end, Malashevsky proved to be too much to overcome as he won the grand finals and the tournament 5-1. In doing so, he took home $4,500 and a unique profile badge. Malashevsky was already bursting onto the scene as a legitimate superstar, and to everyone that believed his rise to stardom was a fluke, this win has officially cemented him as one of the best all-around players in the game right now. And once again, one of Moist Critical's tournaments had someone coming out of left field to take second place. First it was Arnold at Drench Program, now it was LevaRussian with a godlike run of his own. What an incredible tournament this was. But that was not all this Championship Sunday had to offer. A few hours after the conclusion of Charlie's Perfect Math class, the top 8 of the 1v1 tournament at the round table was starting. This top 8 had mrekk vs FancyLad and Utami vs Ryuk in the winners bracket, and Trailmix vs Koalea Q and Rupersion vs Amlaw in the losers bracket. Amlaw defeated Rupersion 6-4, and Trailmix defeated Koa 6-2, guaranteeing them a 5th place finish where they would await the people who would lose their matches in the winners bracket semifinals. Everyone watching the mrekk vs FancyLad match were treated with something they were not expecting. Instead of a close match that everyone wanted to see or a predictable mrekk victory, they were instead treated by the opposite as FancyLad prevailed 6-2. Considering that mrekk won the Battle Royale tournament at the round table against Fancy in the grand final 7-1, everyone was expecting more or less the same in the main bracket. But whether it's nerves or a nice bounce back from FancyLad, it led to a major upset no one saw coming. Utami would take care of business against Ryuk 6-1, setting the stage for FancyLad vs Utami in winners finals, and mrekk vs Trailmix and Ryuk vs Amlaw in the losers bracket. Following mrekk 6-3 win over Trailmix and Ryuk 6-1 win over Amlaw, they would meet each other in losers semis. mrekk would continue to build on the momentum he was building in the losers bracket, defeating Ryuk 6-2 fairly easily, where he awaited the loser of the winners finals matchup between Utami and FancyLad. And it's at this part of the tournament where things started to get absolutely insane. Utami and FancyLad had a match for the ages. Both of them traded map win after map win, and whenever it seemed someone would take an advantage, the other would always bounce back. Not a single break point was surrendered by either player in this match, so it must be decided in a tiebreaker. Both players in this match were playing with a massive chip on their shoulder, and with the mounting pressure of the round table, we knew we were witnessing a match for the ages. The map pools of the round table are littered with some of the most iconic and recognizable maps Osu has to offer, and the tiebreaker maps were not only crowd pleasers, but they were maps where victory for any player is never certain. And all we could do was sit back and watch what this match would unfold.
Utami has somehow stabilized again and is building it up from the ground. Dude, this is just... insane performance.
In the end, Utami ended up taking this nail-biter of a match, and earned himself a spot in the grand finals on the winner's side of the bracket. At the same time, this meant that mrekk and FancyLad would play each other in this tournament for the 3rd time. mrekk took the first match between the two of them in the grand finals of the Battle Royale side of it. and Fancy Lad took the second match between them in the winner's bracket semifinals. Now, with the trip to the grand finals on the line, the stakes were higher than before, but only one of them could prevail. And if you thought the previous match was insane, you should wait for what this loser's finals matchup had to offer. mrekk started the match off strong, taking a quick 4-1 lead over Fancy Lad, but Fancy Lad wouldn't deter and fought his way back into the match. Soon enough, this match was tied at 5-5, and as if this tournament is something straight out of a sports movie, this match would also be decided in a tiebreaker. And this is where we would see something only one of the game's best could possibly accomplish.
Oh my goodness. mrekk,
On
what
the
are you
edge
doing?
of our seats.
What are you doing, mrekk?
There is no
Are you
way.
seriously going to do this to him? The
What do you
spectators are
do
rolling
against
in.
this in a tiebreaker?
Oh
Nothing.
my god.
And
What
he's
am
just
I
doing it.
watching?
He is finishing it out comfortably.
No way. No
I am
way.
astonished.
mrekk, what are you doing?
What a legend.
mrekk, are you
In the
serious?
flesh. Hitting everything non-stop, doesn't care, keep going, and he closes it out.
Are you serious?
What? What? A full combo on the tiebreaker to move on to the grand finals here at the Roundtable 2022
absolutely insane.
1-versus-1 Invitational here in Los Angeles. Ladies and gentlemen, this is why he is the rank 1 player.
mrekk FC'd an 8.29 star map in the losers finals at the Roundtable. If this was score v1, this score would have been just the second FC on the map and the number 2 scorer on the leaderboard. Somehow, this historic tournament was getting crazier as it progressed. The scriptwriters were cooking up a tournament for the ages. Yet, somehow this tournament was going to get even crazier. With this win, mrekk made it to the grand finals where he would play against Utami. The stage was set for a match that will undoubtedly go down in history. Before the match even started, we could all feel the tension. Utami was laser focused and set on taking care of business to put away the grand finals. mrekk, on the other hand, was spinning in f***ing circles. The match finally started, but no one could have ever expected the match would turn out quite like this. mrekk started off strong with an early breakpoint on Utami's point, giving him a quick 2-0 lead, but Utami would immediately answer with a breakpoint of his own and even the match at 2 apiece. The match just started, but things were getting heated. Utami awaited mrekk's next pick, fully aware of what he is capable of. Meanwhile, mrekk was nowhere to be found. He was eating Make-You's chocolate donut. mrekk's snack run delayed the match by 10 minutes, but the players were going to get right back in it. Utami would take his first lead of the match after a breakpoint gave him a 4-3 advantage with his pick coming up next. And on that pick, this happened.
No way, both players are holding level 1,100
There is
on
no
both
way.
players.
There is no
Oh
way.
my god.
This has
Is it
not
gonna
been
be
a
an
seed
accuracy battle?
in a match as of yet.
An
There's been
accuracy
one
battle on
slider
Double
break play
Time
on
2
this.
here in the grand
No
finals of
FC.
the Roundtable 1v1 Invitational.
Both players playing out of their minds.
No way. Is it really down to accuracy?
I cannot believe that.
Oh my
I cannot
God.
believe it. Making it through those triples, followed by burst sliders, both sides.
Wait a second. This is supposed to be the grand final stage. FCs are not supposed to be expected, yet we're seeing 2 of them coming in from Utami and mrekk. Oh my god! Welcome to the Roundtable! You guys are insane! Holy shit!
With unimaginable levels of pressure in this huge tournament, we had a double FC in the grand finals. It's impressive that even one of them managed to FC this map, but both of them? This was getting insane. This map was ultimately decided by Utami's slightly higher accuracy, which gave him a 5-3 lead. But mrekk would fire back with his own breakpoint, and now this match was tied 5-5. Both players would win their final pick of the match, putting them at 6-6. This grand final was going the distance. The tiebreaker would be played on Exit This Earth's Atomosphere. Yes, there is an O before the M. I just learned that too. Both players had something to prove, both fully capable of changing the landscape of Osu history right here and right now. Watching this live, well, let's just say there are no words that could fully capture what everyone felt in the moment. And with everything on the line at the round table, both players played as if the world was depending on them to win.
Here we go, the last drop!
Everyone is on the edge of their seats. Everyone is trying to figure out who is going to win. It is so close. It can be even.
Utami's gonna break!
Utami finally breaks.
Sakamata has an opportunity here to break.
On 400 combo.
Close the gap here.
But he breaks as well. It is still a 10,000 point difference, ladies and gentlemen. The streams are coming in. Is it going to come down to the outro? Utami is still in the lead.
That's it.
Unless we see an uncharacteristic break, I think it's going
That's
over
it.
to Utami.
That's
I
it.
don't think we're seeing a bracket reset. I think Utami has done it.
What an incredible
It's over.
match.
It's over. Utami has the lead in combo. He has the lead in accuracy. Sakamata 1 is not going to find any sort of opportunity to bring it back. And as we're getting into the last few moments of this map, the round table is coming to a close. The 1 versus 1 16-player invitational in Los Angeles is in its final moments. And here at the final slider, it's over. Utami has done it. He's proven himself on the world-class stage. Oh my God, ladies and gentlemen.
In the end of it all, Utami was able to prevail. After taking 3rd place in Charlie's perfect math class, a respectable finish but one he was disappointed with, he reached the summit at the round table in front of the thousands of live viewers. His reaction said it all. He became the knight of the round table. And oh my god, is that a f***ing sword? Never have I ever seen a venue for Osu become so wholesome despite competing with one another. While they might have competed each other until the bitter end, they were all still friends with each other. And as mrekk and Utami held each other in a wholesome embrace, this incredible weekend for Osu was over. This weekend showed us 2 things. That the Osu tournament scene can still be pushed into heights never seen before, and that we can have a lot of fun doing so. These 2 tournaments have reached a level of prestige only rivaled by the most iconic Osu events. And if these 2 tournament series were to continue, which thankfully seems very likely, not only can we grow Osu esports, but we can have much more fun doing so. And that is why we play the game.